Hello, awesome YouTube people. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to watch this YouTube channel. Today I decided to talk about something that quite a lot of YouTubers have been talking about lately because COVID lockdown thing. So now we're all inside and we talk about our camera. About 1 year ago, when I moved to BC, I decided to go full-time into cinematography. It has been something I really enjoyed doing, and it's something I always wanted to kind of pursue. But when I started my career as a photographer about 10 to 12 years ago, gear was not what it was today. To invest in an okay cinema camera would have been something like almost $100,000. The little consumer camera were not up to my personal standards, so I decided to stick with photography. But lately things have changed for the better, and I decided to go full on videography with keeping photo as kind of more of a side. So I bought myself this amazing URSA Mini Pro G2. This camera received quite a bit of praise in the year it's been released, and for good reason. It's a freaking amazing camera for its price point. Once fully outfitted, this camera runs around $12,000, which for a lot of people might seem a lot. Even for me, it's still a lot. But when video is your main thing and it's what makes your living, you kind of start thinking about this more as a investment than an expense. It's not something I bought just because I wanted to. It's not only a toy, it's a tool. I went with this camera because the look is amazing, and I personally feel that when you film, having something heavy is always a good thing. It makes your image more stable and you have more control over what you're doing. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about what I like and what I don't like about this camera, because obviously nothing is perfect, and at this price point, I cannot expect a camera to be perfect. Let me start by what I really like about this camera, and it's the fact that it's a simple package. And by simple, I mean that I go on a shoot and all I need is this. I don't have to have like different wire. I have a monitor there that is very useful. Most of the time I shoot shoulder. So I have this here, and boom, voila. Also, there is here on the top, I don't know if you can see, but 2 XLR input, which means that I just put that thing here, boop, and I have a microphone on my camera, and everything goes directly in my camera. That way I don't have to sync in post and run around files that you forgot to slate, and it's very simple. It's a run and gun situation. You're a one-man band. Boom, boom, boom. You don't want to have to set up all the things. For interviews, you just put a 30 feet XLR cable there. It goes in a microphone. The microphone goes on top of your subject. Bam! The audio that comes from this camera is good. For me, for my use, it works. Most of the time, it just works marvelously, and when I need more, I'm just gonna rent an external recorder. Also, another thing I really like about this camera is BlackMagic Raw. It makes it very easy to work with. I can use a very cheap SD card. I can just pop that right in. We have 120 gig of memory that can record up to BlackMagic Raw 5:1 compression ratio, which is, when you shoot at 24 FPS, it is perfect. I don't have to pay $1,000 for a freaking CFast card. Also, another thing I really like about this camera is right here, there's a USB-C input, which means I can take one of those super cheap Samsung T5 and plug it in and record a Q0 B-Raw, and I can also record B-Raw 5:1 up to 120 frames per second. No problem, no drop frame, which is amazing to me. It just makes it so convenient and so cheap. And if I ever wanted to go with CFast card, I also can do that because the camera accepts CFast card. Another thing about the codec, BlackMagic Raw is freaking amazing. I've been shooting some content for a brand at 12:1 compression ratio, which is the highest compression available on that camera. And I can barely see a difference. I can barely see any difference between 5:1 and 12:1, especially when the content goes online. I also really enjoy the fact that there is an ND filter here, built-in ND filter, which has been calibrated for the camera, because a lot of ND filter that you have on the market are not IR calibrated for your sensor. So you film and then you have a lot of IR pollution. Not with this bad boy. You can just flip it and you don't even have to think about infrared pollution, which is amazing to me. Also, the whole ergonomic, I think it's a very fun to work with camera that is comfortable on your shoulder, comfortable like on your hip, shooting from the hip. And also I really like the weight of this camera. I know it's a weird thing to say in this day and age of DSLR mirrorless that gets lighter and lighter every day, but I personally feel that when you have a lot of heft to your camera, when it's heavy, you have way less vibration, you have way less micro jitter because your muscles are engaged. And since it's a big camera, you're gonna like prep it on your chest like that. And then it's way, way, way more stable than a little mirrorless that you hold like that. So for me, this is amazing. And I personally really like the top handle. I like that it's closed on both sides. So it gives you like the security of never letting it fall. I personally love that. Also, this little piece here, the viewfinder. The viewfinder that comes with this camera, I personally find it to be quite great. I'm personally not a big fan of having a monitor. Doesn't matter how bright it is, I always end up like having those eye strain from looking at when you're filming shoulder and then you have like your monitor there. I feel like it, I don't know, I feel like it hurts my eyes. Whereas with one of these viewfinder, I feel like it doesn't strain my eyes as much, and I have this free eye here to kind of look what's happening in front of me. Also, one other thing that a lot of people don't talk about when you talk about viewfinder is that having a viewfinder makes your movement more fluid because you have way more points of contact with your camera, because like you have one point of contact there, one here, and sometimes you have a follow focus, so you have another point of contact, or most of the time I'm gonna be shooting like that. So my whole body is engaged with my camera. And when I shoot from the hip, there I go, another point of contact. Makes your footage really way smoother than if you didn't have that. And another thing is, like, with this weight, you're gonna be less and less prone to use a gimbal. And to me, it's a big plus because everybody and their grandmother use gimbals. And I like the handheld move. I like having this kind of to my videos. And when I don't want to shake, I just put it on a stick and it's stable. Another thing that is mind-blowing about this camera is its color science. I am a big fan of Blackmagic's color science. The only other color science from a cinema camera that I like better is the Arri Alexa. I cannot afford an Arri Alexa. So, you know, second best is good enough for that boy. Another thing, the ergonomic. Your buttons are accessible no matter where you are. You have a record button here, one, one on the LCD screen. You have like 4 record button on the body itself, but you also have your ISO and gain here. And then you open it and it's on your screen, and the user interface of this camera is freaking awesome. It's just so simple to use. And in terms of reliability, this camera has never failed me. I've been using it almost every day for like the past year, and I haven't had any problem. Although this camera is almost perfect, the word here is almost. There are a couple things that kind of irritates me from this camera. I think my biggest friction point with this camera is the onboard microphones. If you can see here, this camera has a huge vent. So it basically takes the air from the bottom of the camera and pushes it upwards. So the camera stays at its ideal temperature. But what this means is that the onboard microphones, they pick up so much of that fan's noise. It's always like a little, you always hear it. That's kind of a little design flaw from Blackmagic, but I personally think the microphones are there only as a scratch audio. So basically you only use it to sync your audio in post when you don't use the XLR input. Other little thing that kind of bothers me is the screen here. It doesn't fully flip 180. I know it's not a vlogging camera, but when you're filming, let's say an interview, you film your interview and you're like, okay, oh, blah. And then the person you're interviewing is like, oh, can I see the shot? You could be just like flipping it and be like, look. Nope, you can't. Not a big deal, but I feel like it should be fully flippable. I know that filmmakers on YouTube are just gonna flame me for saying that, but I don't mind at all. My other little grip with that camera is the placement of the USB-C input. Why? For the good reason that sometimes, like I said, you use one of these, plug it. What happens is all of a sudden you cannot close your monitor. So you're like that. The monitor becomes in your face. You run into the risk of breaking your USB port here. In my opinion, if they moved it here, it would have been perfect. Put a little plastic plug so it doesn't get full of dirt, and you have a fully usable USB-C port. The other thing, the accessories that Blackmagic kind of sells you. I think that's one of the big mistakes I did when I bought this camera. And if I could go back in time, I would just buy the body and buy everything else from small rig. This shoulder rig here, it's not the most comfortable. It's like very stiff plastic. This bar here is kind of awkwardly short, and it's not extendable. So to me, sometimes I feel like really cramped. The handle here, it's stupid expensive. It's hollow shell of plastic. It cost something like $400. I was overly excited to receive this camera, So I didn't think twice about buying that. And today I regret it. I would buy a small rig wooden thing and it would be way better. Other than that, I think that's about the only thing I really don't like about this camera, because the rest is amazing. Now that I talked about what I like and what I don't like about this camera, the only thing left to say is, how can someone like me afford a $12,000 camera? I went that way because I knew that cinematography was what I wanted to push towards. And this camera was kind of this thing that I bought so I would feel bad not to film. It's on my desk right next to my computer, so every day that I sit down, I see this camera. And this camera is a great piece of gear that makes me want to film, but also kind of pushes me to be a better filmmaker, to film more and to push myself more. Also, I did quite a bit of sacrifices. I don't own a car, and when I used to own a car, I was owning Toyota Corolla from 1997 that was beige. A lot of people I see that are in the same industry as me that ask me how can you afford that? I usually ask them, how much is your car worth? And they usually say $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, which is a lot considering that this car is not making you make money. I've never personally been to a client that refused, that didn't give me the job because I didn't have a nice enough car. I think it pretty much wraps this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I'm rambling a lot, even though I had everything outlined. When I film myself, I'm super stressed, so I'm sweating, I'm stinky, and yeah, there is going to be quite a bit more of these videos if you enjoy them. So if you have any idea about what you want to learn from someone like me, just drop them in the comment and I will do my best to answer you. So please stay safe, stay sound, stay sane, try at least, and I'll see you around. Bye-bye. You're an amazing human being. Love yourself.